How's everybody doing today? Hopefully you had a good weekend. Anyway, today I want to talk to you about achieving your goals. Henry Ford once said, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, either way you're right. So what's preventing you from achieving your goals? Is it G.A.I.L? No, I'm not talking about your friend G.A.I.L who you play tennis with. I'm talking about the acronym G.A.I.L, which represents energy blocks that hold us back from getting what we want in life. But before we define and discuss G.A.I.L, let's try to understand a little bit about energy. Like attracts like, just as they say in The Secret. So we attract and create our own world. You're an artist and your life is just a blank canvas. So by not focusing on what was, and instead focusing on what can be, you create the world you choose. Now everybody wants abundance in their life, and living an abundant life lives with believing in and focusing on an abundant world. Wherever we put our attention is the direction that we head in. If we focus on lack, failing relationships, not finding work, not having enough money, then we create those realities. But energy attracts like energy. So it's important to recognize there are two different types of energy. The first is called anabolic. This is the constructive, healing, building energy. It's the type of energy that releases anabolic hormones, such as testosterone, into your body. Obviously, testosterone makes your body grow. Now, the other type of energy is catabolic, which is the draining, destructive energy. We usually associate it with stress or the fight or flight response. This type of energy releases catabolic chemicals such as cortisol and adrenaline into our body, which actually eat away at our very cells. In ancient history, these chemicals were more necessary for self-preservation, for example, in case a tiger was chasing you. But in modern society, these hormones do more damage than good, especially when our body is constantly producing them in stressful situations. So another way to think about this is that thoughts and feelings produce very real physical reactions in our body by releasing chemicals or hormones. So it is possible to control how we feel and what our bodies experience by focusing on the right type of energy in order to get our body to produce the right type of chemicals. It's that simple. In order to feel better, have a more rewarding, satisfying life, and be healthier, we want to increase our anabolic hormones, such as testosterone, and decrease our catabolic hormones, like cortisol and adrenaline. We'll talk more about this in later chapters on understanding difficult people. But for now, this brings us back to our friend G.A.I.L. So who is G.A.I.L? G.A.I.L is the acronym for a series of energy blocks that hold us back from achieving what we really want out of life. G.A.I.L stands for G for Gremlins, A for Assumptions, I for Interpretations, L for Limiting Beliefs. Now all of these were born out of past experiences. And one of the major differences between therapy and coaching is that therapy focuses on things that happened in the past. Coaching focuses on the present. While it's not necessary to resolve all your past experiences, acknowledging the past can be helpful for moving forward. And another difference is therapy in general brings us from subpar to par, and coaching brings us from functional to optimal. So that's another way to look at it. Anyway, let's get back to G.A.I.L. G stands for Gremlins. Now, Gremlins can be thought of as that inner critic, your inner voice, that tells you in one way or another that you're simply not good enough. If we talk to other people the way we talk to ourselves, most of us would be in jail. Anyway, Gremlins want you to play it safe and be cautious. It's not what you think that you are that holds you back. It's what you think that you're not. So how can we understand our Gremlins? Here's a little poem to think about it. I am fear. I am the menace that lurks in the paths of life, never visible to the eye, but sharply felt in the heart. I'm the father of despair and the brother of procrastination, the enemy of progress and the tool of tyranny. Born of ignorance and nursed on misguided thought, I have darkened more hopes, stifled more ambitions, shattered more ideals, and prevented more accomplishments than history could record. Like the changing chameleon, I assume many disguises. I masquerade as caution. Sometimes I'm known as doubt or worry. But whatever I'm called, I am still fear, the the obstacle of achievement. And I have no master but one, and its name is understanding. I have no power but what the human mind gives me, and I vanish completely when you see the facts as they really are, for I am nothing really. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of how to recognize a gremlin. Think of fear. Think of that voice telling you to play small, be conservative, be cautious. So now that we have recognized our inner voice, how do we deal with it? Well, many times, simply by recognizing the gremlin and perhaps naming it lessens its power. In doing this, you can discover that the only one voice that you have, and it doesn't represent who you are. Let me give you a little conversation here, and it will demonstrate how we can identify and dismiss a gremlin. So you're saying that you're just not capable of doing this job in a way that's required? I keep trying, but I don't know. I guess I'm just not able to think as creatively as others. What do you know about the I am not good enough gremlin? What's that? It's the part of you that believes that you're less than you really are. You say that like it's another person. Well, actually you can think of it that way. In fact, you may even be able to name it. What's a good name for your gremlin? I don't know. Let's call him Sam. Okay. Well, now, at least one time this week when Sam shows up, how about you tell him to take a hike? A gremlin's energy is negative catabolic energy. Now, we already talked about this before in the chapter on beliefs, but once again, here are some other examples of gremlins or our negative inner voice. Some of the things they might be saying to us. I am nothing unless other people love and approve of me. I am not important. My feelings and needs are not important. I can't cope with scary or difficult situations. I'm not smart enough. I don't have the talent. I'm too fat. I'm too ugly. These are all just samples of when we hear that negative inner voice. So, how do we dispel that voice? How do we get rid of these beliefs? Now, here's a couple of questions we can ask ourselves. What's the evidence that supports this belief? If I look objectively, all my life experiences, what's the evidence that this belief is true? Is this belief always true for me? Does this belief consider the whole picture? Does it take into consideration both the positive and the negative ramifications? Does this belief encourage my own peace of mind and well-being? Do I choose this belief? Or has it developed from the influence of family and friends as I was growing up? So to recap and help you get past your gremlins and move to the next level, it's first necessary to recognize when we hear that negative inner voice. It could manifest itself as fear, doubt, or self-criticism. It could be any time your inner voice tells you that you're not good enough and wants you to play small and play it safe. So anytime you hear this voice, recognize it and understand that the voice does not represent who you are. Once you recognize that it's not the true you, then you can move past it. So let's move on now to A for assumptions. An assumption is an expectation that because something happened in the past, it's going to happen again. We're each a product of our own belief system. Carl Jung once said that man can become so imprisoned in this type of thinking that he's simply incapable of fully understanding other people's point of view. No two people experience the world in the same way. Everyone experiences life through a filter of their own personal history. Unfortunately, belief systems don't always serve you in a favorable way. However, they can be changed to be more in alignment with your values. Many personal dilemmas that clients present to coaches can be addressed by helping the client change the beliefs that help create this reality. If you want to change an assumption, it's first necessary to recognize it so you can consciously choose to let it go and take positive action. So the main question that you have to ask yourself is, just because this happened in the past, why must it happen again? If you've ever dealt with someone in the investment industry, you've undoubtedly heard the phrase, past performance is no guarantee of future results. But very often that's exactly our assumption, that the future will be like the past. Now, you may have heard the tongue-in-cheek saying, You should never assume, because when you do, you make an ass out of you and me. When you assume, you're holding yourself back because you're not seeing the entire picture. You're just making decisions without considering all the details. So that's an assumption. Third letter in I's in GAIL stands for interpretations. An interpretation is an opinion or judgment that you create about an event, situation, person, or experience, and you believe it to be true. We don't always see the world as it is. We see it as we are. When I was young, one of my teachers tried to teach me this lesson. She brought me up to the front of the class along with another boy and placed each of us on a different side of her desk. In the middle of the desk was a large round object, and I can clearly see that it was black. So she asked the boy what color the object was, and he answered white. Well, I couldn't believe he said the object was white, when it was obviously black. The teacher told me to go stand where the boy was standing, and told him to come stand where I had been. When we changed places, now she asked me what color the object was, and I had to answer, it's white. It was an object with two differently colored sides, and depending on which viewpoint you were standing, it was either black or white. Now, only from my side was it black. So sometimes we need to look at situations from the other person's perspective to truly understand their interpretation. You've probably all played phone line when you were young, and one person hears one thing, the next person hears another thing. Or maybe you've seen a car accident where three different people saw three different things. But research conducted regarding the principles of quantum physics demonstrate that the world we experience is a creation of our perceptions. We simply attract, and then we see what we expect to see. Certain leading experiments and research indicate that we actually create what we expect to happen. We create our world through interpretations of reality that we make. So to create a more enjoyable life experience, one can focus on discovering natural inner peace and joy, rather than attempting to control outer events and circumstances to find those qualities. If you want to be happy, put your effort into controlling the sail, not the wind. In other words, focus on what you can control, not what you can't control. Pay attention to what frustrates you. What could you have changed? So how can we diminish the power of interpretations? Well, a good place to start is just realizing there are other ways to look at a situation, which is one way to decrease its power. Think about the following situation. You're coming home from the work, you're in your car on the freeway, and you spot a car behind you. It's driving fast and rapidly changing lanes. Then that car passes you and cuts you off. What's your reaction? Well, most of us get upset. We might even respond with some colorful gestures or language. We might interpret this event as they're just selfish, rude jerks who are in a hurry. But now consider the following situation. Think about maybe they were just in an accident and they're carrying a severely injured child to the hospital, maybe even one of your kids. Would you still feel the same way? Had you known or interpreted it that way, you would have gotten out of their way and done anything you could to help. The exact same event occurred, but your reaction was completely different based on your interpretation of the event. The event didn't change. So how can we identify when we're making interpretations? Well, here are a few questions we can ask. What's another way to look at it? What would someone else, like your friend, say about that? How about, what would somebody with a completely opposite point of view say about that? By asking such questions, we can check to see if we're making interpretations and at least understand that maybe there is another side or perspective that we should be looking at. The final letter of GAIL is L, which stands for limiting beliefs. We talked a bit about this earlier, but just to recap, limiting beliefs are something you accept about yourself or the world and the people that you live in that limits you in some way. Or stated another way, a limiting belief is anything that prevents us from doing something. Some limiting beliefs we learn when we're young from our friends or our family, or just might be assumptions that we made and we thought they were true, but they weren't. One example may be when you're young, you ask out a girl and she says no. Now you can assume from that situation that maybe girls don't like you, or worse yet, maybe you're not good enough. Here are a couple of examples of other limiting beliefs. I don't deserve it. I can't do it. It can't be done. Life is a constant struggle. I can't cope with complicated or scary situations. I'm not important. My feelings and needs are not important. I'm nothing unless other people love and respect me. There's someone else more qualified. Remember a few sessions ago I told you about the elephant? My friend went to the circus and he passed by and the elephant was being held by just a tiny rope. No cane, no chains, no cages. It was obvious the elephant could at any time break away, but for some reason it just didn't. So when he asked about it, the trainer said that when the elephant was much smaller, they used the same size rope to hold them, and at that age it was enough. And as they grew up, they were conditioned to believe that they couldn't break away. Now the rope can't hold them anymore, but they don't know that. They don't realize that. So, like the elephants, many of us go through life hanging on to a belief that we can't do something simply because we failed at it once before and we never got past that. We can't let it go. So we have to be careful when we build cause and effect relationships. We often do it without even thinking about it. Just because something happens once or twice under certain circumstances, we assume it happened because of those circumstances and will always happen. That's why it's necessary to always keep an open mind and question our beliefs in the world around us. So how do we do that? Let's try to put this in perspective. The truth exists regardless of beliefs or consent. Miguel de Cervantes said that facts are the enemy of truth. Now he's defining facts as false acceptance of certain temporary situations. We all do that. The point being that sometimes we accept facts that are not facts at all, only what appears to be truth at that moment. If everyone in the world still believed the world was flat, would it be flat? In other words, truths exist whether we believe them or not. Wise people question everything. It may not be a good idea to believe anything on first exposure, and most importantly, don't believe anything that you think about yourself that's limiting you in any way. We can all do anything we really put our mind to. In terms of your consciousness, truth, with a capital T, is who you really are. True, with lowercase t, is who you think you are. Limiting beliefs create inner blocks such as fear, doubt, worry, and guilt. Now, here are some questions we can ask ourselves to cut through these limiting beliefs. How true is that really? Where did I get that idea from? How has that belief affected me? How can I let go of that belief? How can I put that into action immediately? Now I want to give you a series of steps that we can follow to get to the root of any limiting beliefs we may have. What is a problem or limitation that's held you back for a while? What is really stopping you from getting what you want? And this is a problem because, and this means, now repeat that as many times as necessary. What must you believe that makes this problem even exist? What do you believe about yourself that's made this a problem? What do you believe about the world that makes this a problem? And what is that an example of? When did you decide that your problem was a problem? At what point in your life did you buy into this concept? What decision did you make that caused this to be born, this problem? What does this problem mean to you? What will your life be like when you solve this problem? Anyway, hopefully you found some of these techniques useful, not only to uncover your gremlins and limiting beliefs, but also to get you to their core and ultimately to get past them. Now that you have a better understanding of how GAIL may be holding us back, how she influences our thoughts, our understandings, our decisions, there's plenty of scientific evidence to suggest that there is a direct relationship between our thoughts, feelings, and the physical well-being and thoughts and feelings that trigger hormones. So if we can change our thoughts and increase our anabolic hormones and decrease our catabolic hormones, not only will we feel better, but we'll also be healthier, both physically and mentally. So if you feel that you're not where you need to be, we can work with you to help. We can identify your limiting beliefs, assumptions, interpretations, your GAILs, and help get rid of those gremlins. We can help you create a new belief system to move you to the next level and live the life you were destined to live. Remember, we all have thoughts, feelings, and emotions, but we are not our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Destiny is a matter of chance. Actually, destiny is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. I said that backwards. It's not something we wait for, it's something we achieve. Anyway, I hope that was clear. Joe Pastore with Platinum Method Coaching, and I look forward to speaking to you another day.